All right, today we're going to talk about brand strategy. If you are a creative or have some creative skill set and you're early in your career and you want to learn how to advance into management, make more money, and develop the skills and toolkit to freelance, you need brand strategy. If you are in the middle of your career or at the end of your career and you're starting to realize, hey, I don't quite have the full toolkit to get where I want to go, or I want to someday be more entrepreneurial, or I want to have something that differentiates me, you need brand strategy. And what I've noticed for the people that follow me on this platform is you are either younger and pretty savvy and you're trying to learn, or you're older and you're pretty savvy. You're on YouTube and you're on TikTok and Reels and you're trying to figure out those missing pieces. And this is the exact toolkit that will separate that. I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I discovered brand strategy. I'm gonna go a bit into the cardinal rule you need to have to differentiate yourself as a branding person and creative, that you either have it and you know how to do it or you don't. And we'll talk about developing the toolkit for it. We're gonna go into the foundations of strategy, developing a perspective for your brand, your project, etc. We're gonna talk about turning perspectives into themes that can apply to campaigns and projects and individual things you do. We're gonna talk about how you do examples and kind of document and present things to make them make sense. And we're gonna talk about how strategy and tactics play a part in making ideas actionable inside brands. Then we're gonna talk about building your toolkit and like a feedback loop to actually get good at strategy over time. And throughout, I'll sprinkle in a decent amount about how you can approach this either entrepreneurially or with the idea of like making better choices to get you somewhere in your career or making money freelance. If you noticed this week, I dropped my first vlog. And I'm gonna be doing that once a week and tell a little bit more of like, here's what I'm doing, here's the things I'm working on. But these videos that I do every Sunday, I'm treating them essentially like summer school for people that wanna be excellent at branding or their brand. Then I wanna give you a toolkit in every video that you walk out with and you go, oh, I have something I can use now. I can refer back to this, I can make some docs from it, and this is going to help me get where I want to go. So let's do it. So first off, I was a designer, first in Arizona and then in New York, primarily graphic design. I stumbled into doing things with a more luxury bent. One of the first big thorough projects I had was for a nightclub that was a super luxury oriented, gold flakes in the drinks, ultra exclusive. I was just as likely to spend the night there and T-Pain would be than Justin Bieber. Lindsay Lohan broke up with her, Samantha Ronson there. There was a whole world revolving around this luxury feel that was very important to keep up. I did the logos, I did the menus, I did the website, I did all the flyers. I really worked with the owner, who became a good friend of mine and a mentor to me over time, into like what it takes to conjure that level of experience. But I was a designer, doing what I was told from briefs and ideas given to me by somebody. I didn't make much money as a designer in that era. Where I started to make real money was when I applied strategy to design. That's when I became a creative director at an agency. And then where I began to make real money, corporate world, was when I was able to take that into branding and sales and be not just like a young person who can both design and do some basic marketing tactics, but someone who could say, here's a strategy idea for what we should do for holiday or for this product launch. And then over time, I began to accumulate more money because I could do strategy on the side. That's something where it's like, hey, I actually need to go spend 40 hours designing something. I can have a network, I can work with an existing team, and I can help them craft a strategy. Now to becoming entrepreneurial, where strategy is a huge part of everyday life, to today where I have a strategy understanding tactically of marketing, and I understand the internet and social media, so I'm in a constant flow of very well-paid consulting specifically to do that. And this could be you. But what's the most important skill set? Starting here with this image and this video, I'm gonna show a bunch of examples of content here to help prove some points. So why are we watching a video of women's wear being dropped up and down? I'm doing this to talk to you about perspective. There are marketers that are good and there's marketers that are bad. And one thing that all of the marketers that are good have in common is the ability to put themselves in their customer's shoes and recognize when they are not their customer. My first experience was this when I was working in the outdoors market, and the customer I was selling to was a very wealthy hunter. As a young, relatively metropolitan guy who's spending my free money on like cameras and trying to go to Ultra, I did not know anything about what those people wanted. But the ability to submerge myself into what they do was a huge differentiator in being able to sell to them. And this is a skill set that you need to pick up. And it starts just with acknowledging it. Acknowledging, I am not my target demographic. And in some cases you might be, it's gonna be perfect. And you are trying to sell to people just like you. But for the vast majority of projects, you are not the person you're selling to. And here's why this is really important. And here's why I bring up these video ideas. Is because on the internet, everything is content. Everything is being sold through content. It's being given to us on algorithms. In my algorithm that I see personally as Oren, guy into design and luxury goods and life in Southern California, is not showing me this. But it is showing the target customer for a brand consult I'm working on, this exact video, and many more like it. And so for me to be successful at understanding an audience, I understand the people in it. if a bunch of the audience follows Victoria Paris, it's worth it for me to understand why Victoria Paris is popular, the kind of content she makes, and how her influence works to them. And this is just an example because I work on a bunch of female-focused brands a lot, mainly because there's a whole strategy component for these brands that seems to be underserved from a very tactical standpoint. There's amazing creative for them, but there's some connecting of the dots that I seem to have stumbled into a niche on. But the same goes for luxury brands, outdoors brands, southern brands, wellness brands, whatever it is. Just understanding your target demographic, it's putting them in their shoes and asking what would they do. So as a strategist, that is your job, to ask A, who is the customer of this brand? And then B, who do we want the customer to be? Because sometimes those might be different. Every project starts with that. Who is the customer, and is the current customer the customer that we want? And then you need to decide, am I marketing the current customer or am I marketing the customer we want? Is it a Venn diagram that's also a circle, or are we doing both? And then you need to actually submerge yourself into what that person sees and wants and how they're sold, and in particular, content that impacts them. Brand strategy today is like 90% based on content, which there's gonna be a lot of people that watch that and they're going like, oh my God, it's 1000% true. Everything is content. All the stuff I'm presenting in brand strategy is links to content. Because guess what? Brands do paid media, and the paid media has content front and center. And every agency and every person running paid media wants more content to run in the ads. The brands are running organic content and trying to grow on there by making content themselves. They're giving product to influencers who make content. And they're putting out advertisements in other verticals that are often content in the form of ads. There's almost nothing that they are doing that does not involve the quality of content front and center. So this is actually a gift for you because it is easier than ever to put yourself in another customer's shoes. The first thing you do is you're gonna start burner accounts on Instagram and TikTok and X. And you are going to follow and only engage with on those accounts things in the niche you're looking for. So for instance, if you are looking at a women's wear accessories brand, you're gonna go follow influencers in women's wear accessories and the brands that do it. And the easy way to do this, TikTok makes this mad easy. Because say I'm diving into Rode, the Rode customer. I can go search Rode, I immediately see these are popular people posting Rode. I haven't heard of any of these people. Only one of them is from the Rode account. If I wanna go understand who the customer the Rode is appealing to, I'm gonna go click through 100, 200, some serious volume of these, and I'm going to follow all of them. And I'm going to interact with that content. I'm not going to interact with anything else. Your entire job when you scroll those feeds, and you intentionally put time to scroll those feeds, is to understand this customer and this placement. And you, on that account, bookmark all the stuff that is going to be relevant. Now you have a whole path you can go look on for each demographic you do. So I have hella accounts. So many accounts, I have second phones. Because I have an account where I'm looking purely at outdoors. I have an account where I'm looking purely at luxury. I have an account where I'm really trying to get Gen X male and understand what that looks like. We have accounts just for weird shit. We have accounts for different types of female focused brands. And then you can begin to then have your bookmarks all organized and look into it. So if you basically make these burner accounts, plus you do intentional scrolling, which to me is take 15 minutes once you've done your following, whatever it is, 3 times a week, and scroll with the purpose of bookmarking something that is effective or an interesting idea or a theme you see a bunch of. You are collecting a catalog that serves as your perspective base. And then you can have your traditional toolkit, customer toolkit, which is just putting together a sheet being like, my customer is I have an avatar presenting. I have a customer, I'm gonna call her Ava. She is a 34-year-old woman. She loves to, here's where she shops. Here's the websites that she goes to. Here's what her social media looks like with some examples of people like that. Here's her rough disposable income. Here's what she prioritizes. Beginning to walk through what their life looks like in and around that. That exercise and just beginning to craft that is great. But also, what's awesome is basing that around real people on social media. And what's nice is you start searching through some of this, find people that are doing videos about it that have 4,000 views, that aren't influencers, and have an equal match of influencers to real people. You'll start to see customer reviews and you can tell what's kind of promoted or not. Now you're beginning to build a real base. And the deeper you go, the better your strategy is going to be. First chunk of career advice, if you are working at a job and you are trying to up level in that job, do this for that brand. And I don't care what you do. You're a videographer, you're a photographer, you're whatever you are. You're in marketing, you're in branding, you're in sales, you're in whatever. If you go understand your customer avatar, have a bunch of examples for it, and then continually bring it up in the right circumstance when you're going through a strategy or talking about ideas or execution, being like, hey, I actually have these 3 things that I've seen from this customer avatar from our competitor, or these 3 links are doing really well in our niche right now. You just start to slide that stuff into emails and Slacks and be a person that has that, and you are immediately going to become infinitely more valuable, and people are going to notice it. And you keep pushing it. You have to be your own champion, but you're being your own champion, not hey, look at me, I have all this great stuff. Just by putting more inputs out there. And that is a significant differentiator in getting you where you want to go. And then when you actually do end up in an interview or pushing for a position, and you go and be look, I'm your blank designer, or I'm your great videographer, your excellent marketing manager. I want to be your director. And you know what I do better than anybody else that's going to come in for this position? I understand our customer. Look at this. Here's 40 links of the type of influencers that appeal to our customer. Here's all of our UGC categories. Here's what I think is good and bad about it. Here's ideas that our competitors are doing that I've organized into slots. If you come with a strategic perspective like that into an interview to move up, people are going to like, A, want you to be working on it, and B, be impressed. The only thing you have to worry about is them being threatened. And those are the kind of stuff that works itself out anyway, because you're going to end up leaving scenarios where people who are above you are threatened by your success. So now we're going to talk about turning a perspective into a theme. Everything in brand strategy is typically going to be based on themes. And so I'm going to use this theme here. You see all this luggage videos that are coming out. So if I'm scrolling through, this is something I'm literally doing on a project, scrolling through videos of like, women's wear accessories. And I'm seeing a lot of like this travel theme. I'm like, all right, cool. This is all just the same products presented in luggage, but that's a cool viral format for content. But then I'm also noticing this carousel that popped off where very similar theme, a lot of things going on. It's all kind of travel related, but it's obviously presenting kind of luxury goods. Then I'm seeing this type of content where these kind of collages are really doing well. I'm starting to think, okay, well, there's a lot of like scenic photos and things in here, like lifestyle as well. And then it kind of clicks. Okay, I've now started to see a bunch of this. The theme I think that we should embrace for whatever we're working on is travel. So what do I mean by theme and what does that go from there? So how do I use a theme? So the things that you work on that need strategy usually fall into a couple buckets. One, we're going to make new ads. We got to make new ads. We need to basically give a brief to whoever's going to make the ads. The second thing is we need to make new content for our page, for our whatever. We need to find new ideas to make that content. Third, we need other people to make content. We need to find influencers or employ influencers, and they need to make content. Or we're gifting out products to our customers, and that needs that. Or we're making email campaigns to update our automation, or we're doing a website. All those things do better with themes. They do better with an idea or a campaign, like your traditional advertising campaign, or Equinox being like, actually going to bring Equinox up. They're a good example. They had like yearly campaigns for a minute, like commit to something. It was a theme, it was a textual theme that they brought up that would be used overarching over time in a bunch of different stuff. And you see they use it in like a bunch of different graphics, etc. Equinox made me do it. Another one, more straight brand. Warren Law's our most recent one that had like these kind of very visceral sexual undertones. But the commit to something campaign is one of the more prolific, but basically they'd have this kind of conceptual theme that they would then run through advertisements and things for a while, and you can see how those will naturally expand. But so if I notice this travel theme, now it's a question of like, what do I do with it? So you develop a theme for your campaigns, and usually you're gonna develop like 2 or 3 to kind of pitch to people. Be like, hey, for whatever it is we're doing, I wanna have this travel focus, or I wanna have this other campaign that's more focused on this. I do a lot of this in Notion docs. And so like one I worked on recently, we were kind of positioning something that was more like a coquette theme, like some kind of like, if you haven't seen this, all the things that have like bows and these kind of very ornate pieces, but done in a slightly minimalist manner. And we had a couple visual ideas in one, and a brief kind of, you'll have a few visual ideas where you're presenting a theme for the campaign. And strategy is about putting those themes forward and having examples of them. And so I would take literally all these videos that I've shown here, and I'd be like, hey, here's some examples of strategic content that kind of has this travel theme. And it's a question of what do you do with it? So once you kind of have that theme idea and you say, here's an idea, here's why I think our customer will like it. Here's a couple examples of interesting content and themes and styles I'm seeing on the internet around it. Then it comes into the conversation of, okay, what do you actually do with it? So I would say, for instance, if you're seeding influencer product, so you're sending out 100 of whatever product to your company every month to influencer, you could say, we should add a strategy layer to that. Maybe it's not doing good enough as it is. So you can say, hey, we're gonna do a campaign, 90 days, everything we send out to those influencers, we want them to create content with a travel theme. That is a strategy application. That could be just as easy as, hey, we're running a bunch of ads, 50% of the new ads we do, we want to have a travel theme. You basically take your campaign, put it into the adjacent content that attaches to it. And then you start to get into how you do it. But in this influencer case, what I would do is I'd actually collect these examples and be like, hey, we want you to incorporate our product. The whole theme of the campaigns you're doing is travel. You can interpret that as you may, but we'd like that to be a through line. We want you to use luggage inside your videos. We want you to be going places when you use our product. If you want to be talking about it or integrating it into things you do, have this idea of going from one place to the other. And so you can give whoever you're working with, whether they're making ads or they're creative or they're editing a video or they're coming up with a copy, you give them this theme and you give them some ideas on how they work through it. And then you give them a toolkit about how to make it good. So here's an example of that for strategy. One of the reasons like scrolling and stuff is great. So POV is interesting. So videos that say POV. POV, it's summer and you're picking her up to get ice cream every day. That's what this artist did. And you can have, same as like, I have a series on my valuable one, I think, where I had like POV, the plan is starting to come together or something like that. POV, the vision is coming together, right? But all it is just a hook, an idea for how you connect a bunch of imagery that comes after it. And so for instance, when I look at, obviously this content is doing just fine, not necessarily my help, but if I was doing this from a branding perspective and asking influencers to make, content like this, having it be like POV girls trip or whatever it is. And then the theme of your campaign is girls trip. And you're using that in your copy, you're using it everywhere. All of a sudden you're beginning to put a through line into what you're creating. And when you're asking influencers to do that, you'll start to see the more people post it. If you have 50 people actually engage with the thing in the campaign, it has like a magic effect online. It becomes a thing that other people adopt because they're seeing it to start happening. All of a sudden you're having like a bigger impact outsized from what you've already kind of paid for or done. You're beginning to have a cultural impact. And that's the kind of foundation of strategy, is it gets people talking beyond what you pay to execute. But what else can you do in a toolkit? So for instance, a great thing that I love to do, going back to this first example, is we see a couple themes of something happening in content. Like this is happening right now. These videos are popping right now. And a little like maybe a couple weeks ago, these kind of videos were popping too. Just this kind of, obviously they just flip the video. And you'll start to see, like when you see a couple of a format run across your screen, you're gonna be like, oh, this is a thing. And then you can kind of start looking to be like, how long has this been a thing? But either way, give a couple pieces like this, like these hanging upside down, or the drop you saw, or even something like this we looked at before. Put a couple clumps of examples together in the brief that you're giving to creative teams or influencers. And if you basically say, here's some ideas that we see are doing well online right now, you can use as a basis for your content. And then you actually give them some tutorials. Go say, here's how you do that in CapCut, or go find a million tutorials for how to do all this stuff on Reels and TikTok. Just go find someone doing it. And all of a sudden, if you get an influencer brief or a brief for your ad creative or your photo team, and it's like, here's this visual idea. Here's some examples of that visual idea performing well organically online. Here's a tutorial of how to actually do some of that right there. Now you've completed the loop. You are coming up with a strategy and helping other people implement it. You are now probably the most useful person working on side one of these projects, because you have the ability to say, here's how we make it better. And then you have the ability to give people the toolkit to do it. And so if you just focus on doing that on any of these projects you do, especially if you're enabling others, and a big part about strategy is maybe you're doing strategy, you're then doing the final application on yourself, or maybe you're enabling others, but either way, you're about making it better. So if you're the videographer or the designer at this point, you're hunting down all these for yourself. So you can go, I'm gonna have a theme for this. I'm gonna execute it. I'm gonna use a new visual idea. It's gonna work. And then you can use this basis. And that's equally as powerful of a concept if you want to just be a better creative. But then if you really want to move up in a career or you get into making money, you're gonna be doing this as part of a larger team. And then when you start to take it to the next level, you're gonna have done this multiple times on multiple projects. You're gonna develop a portfolio of this. So you're gonna see what works and doesn't. So you're gonna say, I send people the examples, but they never actually do them. So then you're gonna have to think about, how am I briefing this, or how am I communicating? I need to do more of that. Or you're gonna say, hey, I put these ideas in here, but when they actually did them, they didn't perform. Maybe it was just something that only worked at the time. But you're gonna start to say this idea of, okay, I need to communicate these ideas better. Or maybe to this demographic, I communicate this differently. Or hey, the trends move way faster. By the time I actually get them out, trend stuff doesn't work for me. But whatever that is, feedback it. Look at every time you do a strategy, postmortem, what worked and what didn't. And the key columns to add within that are, does it not work because I didn't communicate it well enough or stay on top of the people well enough to execute it? Or did it not work because the idea didn't? And there's a lot of times it falls in the first column and it's not your fault and it's okay. Don't get attached to it. Don't live and die by it. Literally have the checkbox and say, this didn't work, but I don't think it was my bad. But note, what can I improve to make sure that it works next time? And you have the ideas where you say, this doesn't work or this does. And then after 10 projects, 15 projects, 100 projects, you've got a toolkit. This is your brand strategy toolkit. You know you can go drop the bomb when you need something to work. You know you have some things that are like, might work in this circumstance. You have some things you're dying to try. But like now you're working with like a full deck as a strategist. And the reason I think this is a thing worth bringing up and talking a lot about is I feel like so many of these creative roles are going to now be replaced to some extent by like people able to do it cheaper overseas, some functions of AI, et cetera. Your ability to think critically about it and apply a critical toolkit in your customer's shoes is something that like every person who really wants to succeed is going to have to do. And what's nice is if you do this a few times, you put together that kit, and that kit can literally be like, here's a theme with a mood board. And I'll show you one right here. Here's an exact one that we were just pitching out. We're like, cool. Here's a big image that's a thematic what we're doing with this campaign. Here's a mood board. I'm linking to like, this is just a screenshot of from the Cosmos mood board we made of all the examples and references visually we're looking at going into this project. Here's things that kind of entice us and we're interested in visually. And I'll make this public on Cosmos. You can go scroll through it as well. Like here's some of the visual inspiration we have. Here's some brands that are doing some stuff like this in the right way, or that are kind of an example of this look that we're going for. So you can see the content that they make and kind of how that's going. And then I'll go into like a muse for it. Pick somebody who is embodying this kind of theme that we're going through. And it's a good example that we'd say, if we're looking for our perfect person to be like an embodiment of this, would be this person. List out some of the imagery we're looking at, opens the door to what that means. Like, and kind of talk a bit through like what the angle means we're talking about. Like, this is an example of like a brief for this. This isn't the craziest thing. It doesn't take you years to put together, but it's a simple, effective format that basically presents a strategy. When you get a whole bunch of these, even if you only get a handful, your first 2 or 3 that you've done, when you actually go to tell someone, why should you hire me? You go, here's my process. When I come up with a theme like this, and it's based in reality in the customer persona, and then we go execute a campaign. Your ability to say that versus 90% of freelancers that are competing for something is like such a leg up. And if you do the kind of stuff I do, where like I'm basically showing this in public right now, there'll be brands that will hit me because of this YouTube video. They'll be like, I need that. But if you begin to document, here's how I look at it, or here's a theme, or whatever it is, you're beginning to build that portfolio. And I'm gonna do a whole separate video on like starting to build your personal brand, not like becoming a full-time creator or anything like that, but like building your modern portfolio is one of the ones I'm about to hit in this series here. I know I say all the time in these videos, I have these videos coming. I like write out a bunch of them. I have a million ideas, but that's one I think is really critical. But you develop this over time, and all of a sudden your Pinterest and your Cosmos are filled with a bunch of these archetypes and links, these campaign ideas, and you have some results of what worked and what didn't, and you're thinking in your customer's shoes. You are now a strategist. You can use that job in that toolkit and it will be able to make you money. It will allow you to rise up and be able to manage others and be a crucial part of a team that may not be the person actually executing the work inside some of these organizations. It's going to allow you to think. Being a manager, being a director, being a VP is usually a combination of 3 things. 1 is your ability to actually get results out of other people and communicate with other people. 2 is your ability to have strategy and impact. And 3 is the way you communicate upwards and communicate to other parts of the org in a way that makes them feel good about your efficiency. That's probably a whole separate conversation too. But this is one of those key 3 components. And if you combine it with even one of the other 2, you are a fit for management, which will make you much more money. And then last, if you just want to make good work, if you just want to be making better work for what you do, you can take this angle with yourself. Anyway, that is my quick and dirty guide to brand strategy. There is obviously significantly more nuance and 100 layers you can do. But if you want to do the minimum viable product that is going to allow you to create interesting, better stuff, and you're able to churn it, because a lot of what we're doing today in today's world is about just fucking moving. There's just so much content to make, so many campaigns to do, and everyone is behind in terms of the velocity and volume they should have. And you can just knock out this type of thing. You can just hammer it. You can be doing this every week. And you can be a major part of why your brand is moving fast. And all these people were talking about brand strategy is these 400 items, or we got to go in this checklist, or do these user interviews or whatever. And you can be like, yeah, you know what? But what I'm doing actually works and see social results, and the feedback loop is super quick. So we're going to run that because I can run 10 of them the speed you can run that one process. Anyway, a bit of a rabbit hole. Appreciate you watching. If you have questions on this, stuff you want to hit more in this series, let me know. Appreciate you watching as always. I will be back with a vlog in the middle of the week and another one of these next Sunday. Plus up.